recording in progress. And I will post the video somewhere and give you a link. And I will share the screen of the PowerPoint presentation. Oh, hold on, that's screen one. I actually want to share the present. Presenter view. There we go. Okay. You get 40 minutes for free with Zoom, and we started at about 5:02. So at 19:35, the meeting would come to an abrupt end. If we're still talking, we may well be. I will end the meeting, and then apparently all I have to do is restart it, and we can all come back in. I hope.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, Nick, I've got a business account with Zoom. So if you ever want to do another Zoom, then just let me know and I can be the host for you and I can go on for hours.
Thank you. That's wonderful. All right. I'd much rather have that because this is all a bit clunky. Okay. If we can see the presentation, I will begin. So click on it. So check recording. I hope to do the presentation in 20 minutes. I'll go quite quickly. The point of the presentation is for you to learn about possibly some of the unknown unknowns, the things you didn't even know you could do. It's not a sort of tutorial in step-by-step how to go through the website and do it. It really is a background thing. And afterwards, we can have some questions and, then we can. At the end of the presentation, there are some useful links. I have made the presentation available both as a PowerPoint file and a PDF file. The link is actually in the bottom of the screen here, but you can write that down at some point. It's on every slide. And yeah, I'll post the video and the slide links on my personal Facebook page when we've finished. So yeah, disclosure or conditions, terms and conditions apply. I'm only an enthusiastic amateur. I do not offer paid services on what's in this talk. I will at some point say you might want to go and see a gestor, and I don't, I'm not a gestor, don't ask me to do this. I only have access to the same sources you do. I don't have any special inside information. So read the references, read the sites, and this is background information only and to be used at your own risk. So I don't have insurance. You can't sue me. Okay, so why would you want secure digital ID? What is secure digital ID? It turns out that Spain has one of the world's most advanced citizens ID systems. Most other countries cannot begin to touch this. In Germany, if you want your digital COVID certificate, you have to go to the pharmacy and get it on paper. And if you want to scan it, you scan it. You can't get it online. And services, as you will have noticed, are increasingly moving online. And so they say, well, how do I get this or that? Tax, social security, all of these. And they say, well, have you got Clave? And you go, no. And you go, oh, then you'll need a Cita Previa to come into the office. Oh, and it's COVID. And the next Cita Previa is in 3 months. Have a nice day. You've probably all experienced that. Also, sometimes, particularly if your Spanish isn't all that great, it's actually sometimes easier to sit in front of a website and work out what's going on than to go into an office and have someone go, oh, sorry. Oh. Can you, yeah, so what are the possible options for digital ID? Basically, I'm going to talk about two. There are others, but they're the ED and I if you're Spanish, but there are really two. Something called Certificado Digital. My Spanish pronunciation is not great. Digital certificate. This comes from the Spanish Royal Mint, who since the euro haven't really had a lot of printing of coins to do. I think they maybe make the coins or something, but they haven't been printing a lot of banknotes. So this is not the Certificado Digital COVID, but they both start with Certificado and Dado and Digital. They're not the same thing at all. And a thing called Clave with the little @ sign because it's online and electronic, which comes from at the end of the tax people. There are various forms of Clave, and a lot of people only talk about Clave PIN as if it's the only form of Clave. There are other forms of Clave, but we're not going to mention them. If you're a Clave expert, then you might get into those. What is the difference between these two? This is my model. The Certificado is a bit like a van, and Clave is a bit like a bicycle. And if all you want to do is go to the shop and buy bread, really, you can use either of these. You can do more with the Certificado Digital, but it's like owning a van. And Clave is a bit like owning a bicycle. That's a terrible analogy, but the two will get you where you want to go. So what is the digital certificate? What actually is it? And when I was applying, I go, yes, but what is it? It's a tiny file that lives on your computer. That's all it is. And you can install it into a special place in your computer because your Windows or Macintosh computer know how to handle digital certificates. It's an international standard. It's just contains Spanish information. That's all it is. And it lets you log into a government website with one click. And I'll show you what it looks like when you use it, and it's extremely easy to use. It also lets you electronically sign documents. So I can hear you, John, yeah. I can, you know, when you get a thing from your UK bank and they say, please print this out, sign it, take a photo or a scan and send it back to us. This is your electronic signature. You know, it's just, this is proper, secure electronic signature for the 21st century, included with the digital certificate. But you don't need to worry about that if you're just wanting to log into government websites. Businesses can use it. And if you're running a business, you might already have one, in which case you probably don't need to be here. But it's designed for businesses and individuals. And it has been available since 2004. Clave is designed, is a citizen's service, and it links your DNI number or your NIE number to your phone number. And it's entirely designed around the mobile phone system. You don't need a computer. You don't even need a smartphone because it runs entirely on SMS messages. In fact, homeless people can use Clave. These days, most homeless people have some kind of phone. You can use it if there is no credit on the phone. You can go into a library, use their computer, and then to authenticate yourself, you receive the Clave SMS on your not smart Nokia 3310 from 2004. That's how good it is. It's digital secure ID that even homeless people can use. There is an app, but it's really kind of window dressing. The phone number doesn't even have to be a Spanish phone number, but I would recommend you to use one because SMS delivery to foreign numbers, those of you who use UK numbers may have noticed sometimes an SMS takes 4 hours to arrive, depending on what network you're on. But it'll work on a UK phone number. It's designed for individuals. It's designed to be secure digital ID for absolutely every resident of the country. And it's been available since 2014. And it's become the kind of public brand of all the secure digital ID is Clave, even though you don't have to have the official Clave. So I'm going to show you now what it looks like when you use one or other of these forms to access a government website. So I was going to give a live demo, but these things are always, you know, someone's down or so. So I thought I'd prepare it with some screenshots. So using the Certificado, you find out the website you want to access. You click on the button saying, I want to access with secure ID. This might say Certificado Digital or e-identifier or eDNI or Clave. It's horrible. It's very, very random, but you'll get there. A list of certificates pops up. You click the one you want. You can have more than one certificate installed on the computer. So if you and your wife or spouse or significant other each have your certificate, you just pick the one you want and it logs you in. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to show you, for example, how you get a Padron certificate in Parma if you have Certificado Digital. You go to this page, the link is at the end, and it says you can choose one of the following methods. It then only gives you one method, but, you know, welcome to Spain. And it says Clave. It should say secure digital ID, but it says Clave. And you say, I haven't got Clave. Doesn't matter. You click on here. Select an identification method. Right, now we're choosing. And again, it doesn't say digital certificate, it says e-identify. So you got to click a bit, but you click on here. And up pops this message. This is the only thing that happens. This pops up in your web browser. Here is my certificate and my wife's, and I don't bother trying to break into our accounts because I've changed the NIE numbers and all that kind of stuff. You just click on that. You click on OK. And the next thing you see is this form, which is the form where, now I'm not going to show you how to fill this in because this is what kind of padrons. You are logged in. You are logged in. And when you click next and fill in the details, your padron certificate will arrive on a PDF form and you don't have to do anything else. So the login step is literally, I want to log in with my certificate, which certificate, it logs you in and it's already filled in your name and your NIE. It really couldn't be made any easier. And you don't have to go to the office now. You can download your padron certificate, but you can also download your tax residency certificate and all that other stuff. That's all there is to it. Now, if you have Clave, it's a little bit clunkier. You go to the website. You can be using someone else's computer. The nice thing about Clave is because you carry the ID on your phone, you can do this at your gestor's office or in a library or when you're around at your friend's house. You click on the Clave button. You have to enter your NIE and your numero de soporte, which is, we'll get to. Your phone gets sent a 3-digit code. You enter that code on the form. So that's the challenge to say, prove that you are who you say you are, Mr. NIE 1234, and you've already registered your phone number. So they send a number code to that phone. So let's do the same exercise, getting a padron certificate if you have Clave. So we start at the same form. We click on Start, we choose Clave PIN, and it says enter your number, which you do. And then it says enter the support number, the numero de soporte. I'll come to that later. That is basically the number of your ID card, but it's a bit complicated. So that's mine. Again, I faked it. Continue. Do you want intermediate step? Yes, I want to get a PIN. Your phone will beep. I just shown it here in the notifications, but if you have the app, it'll be in the app. And if you don't have the app, it'll be in your SMS messages. B7A, and that code is valid for about 10 minutes. You go back to the web form, which by now, once you clicked on, I want a PIN, will have this. It's waiting for you to input the PIN. You put it in, you click access, and you're on the form that lets you say, I want the padron certificate. So it's a little bit more clunky because you have to tell them your NIE number and go through the authentication procedure, but it's all on your phone. And that is pretty much it. And that is how you log into almost any website with this. So how do you get it? So how do you get a Certificado Digital? There's a 4-step process. You download and install the software. This isn't terribly difficult. If you're moderately at home on a computer, you go to the website and download it, and it puts it on your desktop, and you double click it and you say, okay. And it runs for a bit and it installs. It's really not difficult. You've done this already, probably, if you know how to use a computer. You fill in a 3-item web form, your NIE, your name, and your email address. And it asks you to choose a password, and the password protects the certificate, and you need to remember the password, put it in an envelope with your, keep it in the file where you keep your birth certificates. It's an important password. It's not one that you write on the back of a crappy bit of paper that you then lose. Try not to lose this one. You go to the office. Yes, you have to go to the office. You show your documents, which is your NIE and your passport. You don't need padron. You don't need copies. In Parma, that needs an appointment. They're currently running about 2 weeks in advance. The people in the office are fabulous in Parma. The people in the digital certificate office, really, really helpful. You get an email that you then download the certificate on the same computer where you applied. Up to now, you need the software, you need the password. But once you've done that, you can then export the certificate and put it on any other number of computers. You can have all the family's certificates on all the family's laptops. or you can ask your gestor to do it. The gestors will do it for you, saves the hassle of visiting the Parma office, but unless the gestor offers to install it on the computer for you, the installation process still requires a little bit of going to Google and how do I install a digital certificate on Windows, which the software does for you. So you still need to be a little bit at home with a computer to use the digital certificate. How to get Clave? Now, the trouble with Clave is getting it is quite a frustrating process. And the reason a lot of people give up is because particularly the web-based process for doing it is very, very clunky and actually requires kind of more, let's say, ability to deal with technophobia than the certificate does, even though in theory it's less technical. So you can get it on the web. There's an app, and I was hoping Ian Parker would turn up because he wrote a very good post in I Have a Question about how he got it with the app, and he installed the app, went online to verify his documents, and it all worked instantly for him. So I've never used that. That may be the best way to get Clave. Or again, you can go to a gestor and they will sign you up for Clave. So there are 4 ways to prove your identity for Clave. For the digital certificate, you've got to go along to an office. For Clave, you can go along in person to the tax office. You can ask them to mail you a card to your home address where you're registered for tax. That kind of proves who you are, with a code on it. You can do it online with a video call. This is new since COVID, and there's a queue in the morning to do it, but apparently it works quite well. But the video call is going to be in Spanish. Or you can get it if you have a Certificado Digital, but then we're going around in circles here. The other thing you need to do before you can register is to prepare your numéro de soporte, and this is a little bit tricky. If you have a DNI, it's just the number on the DNI. If you have a green EU card, which the Irish people here will have, or those of you who haven't changed yet, it's this number on the back. But wait, that's far too simple. You have to have a 9-digit number. So you have to put the letter C and zeros in front of the number to get a 9-digit number. Don't attempt to remember this, but it'll all be in the slides. If you have the TA, then in theory, it's this number. But Brexit TAs have 2 numéros de soporte. And sometimes you need that one, and sometimes you need the other one. So I've configured Clave for people who have a TA, and I still can't remember which one was which. I used one at one point and the other at another point, and it seemed to work. So again, if you had that 940096 number, you want to put a C and 2 zeros in front of it. If this is starting to make your head hurt, you may be a candidate for getting your ID from a gestor. So after that, once you've decided what ID process you're going to use, you either follow the website, follow the app, or ask your gestor. But as I say, for those of you with access to I Have a Question, read Ian Parker or Ian Palmer? I'm sorry, Ian, I've forgotten your last name, who wrote this excellent post back in about July about how he did it. And basically he installed the app without having Clave and then used within the app a thing to say, I would like to register. The problem is that I already have it, so I can't go and do this process because I can't apply again. At some point in the process, you will get a thing called an activation code. In this case, I'm showing you the web thing. The activation code is what is like your password for Clave. Again, you will need it to manage your account. File it with your birth certificate. Do not lose this code. Once you've got that, you can reset everything, but you've got to have that code. Now, there's all sorts of things that can go wrong when you're registering for Clave, which is why I'm doing this presentation, I guess. The green card, your soporte is meant to have an expiry date, but the green cards don't have one. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, there's a support form that you can fill in, and somebody at AAT in Madrid will do a little tweak in the computer and your card will magically work. You might be using the wrong number from the Brexit TA, so use the other one. The system is slow, where the web systems are slow and you get sent from Tribunal Administratif, from AEAT to Social Security via the police website. It bounces absolutely everywhere. It's held together with string and glue, basically. So sometimes, usually you try again and it'll work, but it's incredibly frustrating. Also, Clave is tied to your document number. You noticed when I logged in, it asked for the NIE number, but it also asked for the document number. And so if you have a green card, you get a TA, or if you have a green card or TA and you get the permanent version, you will maybe have to register again because you'll have a new document now. Okay, which one should you choose? Well, the advantages of the certificate are you can log into a website with one click, as we've seen. The process for applying works, and your computer knows about these certificates. You can install multiple certificates on one computer. You can install your certificate on multiple computers. You can spontaneously sign a PDF file and send it to someone in America and say, I've digitally signed this PDF file. Oh, a gift from Zoom. Running out of time, we've removed the 40-minute time limit on your meeting. I had to click a button that said, love it. Okay, disadvantages of the Certificado Digital. It kind of assumes you have your own computer. Now, you can put it on a smart card and carry it around with a reader, but really it's designed for people who have a computer. If you've got a computer that you haven't used in 3 years and only use when your kids come to visit, it's not really. It's for people who run their work, business and personal, administrative life on a computer. If the computer gets stolen, your certificate is on there. So you might want to revoke it. I don't think many people steal computers just so they can log in and look at your tax returns, but so if you're worried about security, you can keep it outside the computer and just plug it in. You have to visit an office, and I'm not going to tell you it's the last time you'll ever visit a government office, but it will save you a lot of visits to government offices in future. And in Parma, that needs a cita previa, but yeah, it's about 2 weeks at the moment. So the advantages of Clave are kind of the opposite of the advantages of the digital certificate. You don't need your own computer. You don't have to visit an office if you use one of the methods that doesn't involve visiting an office. Each access is one time. Now, this can be useful. My gestor doesn't like having my digital certificate. She says when people give her the certificate, it makes her feel very nervous. But the other day, she needed to do something in my tax account. And so she phoned and said, we're going to log in with your Clave. And my phone went beep and I gave her the code. And 10 minutes later, she wasn't able to use that. So it's quite useful for situations where you want to give someone temporary access to your account. So if you've got the certificate, it may be worth getting Clave on top, and that's very easy to do. Disadvantages of Clave, it's poorly explained and documented, as we've seen, which is why you're here. And even after I've explained this, you won't have understood it all because it is big and complicated. The application process is frankly a bit clunky. The servers are sometimes overloaded. The numero de soporte thing is just, at least now you know some of the things that can go wrong. And the login process is not as easy as with the certificate. You don't just click and yes, I want to go. So you have to, you have to enter the NIE and then get the code. So my recommendation would be, if you are moderately at home on a computer, and I don't mean a computer expert, I mean if you use Windows or your Mac fairly regularly and you know how to start a web browser and download and install software, I would say get the digital certificate because it's much easier to use. You can also then get Clave in 5 minutes once you've got it, but you can't, because you don't need to go to the office if you have the digital certificate, but you can't get the digital certificate by verifying your ID with Clave. If all you have is a phone, or if you run your administrative affairs on a phone and maybe a tablet, then probably start with Clave. If you get the digital certificate, you might as well do it yourself, because you need to learn. You need a degree of understanding to do it. And if you use your gestor, you're probably going to have to learn how to install certificates anyway, unless they do a kind of Rolls-Royce service where you take your laptop in and they stick it on there for you. And you may not want your gestor to have a copy of your certificate. Depends how you feel about someone else having that access. If you start with Clave, then I would say do Ian's suggestion of install the app and try to get it from there. And if not, it's probably worth paying a gestor for it, because the sheer hassle of the web-based process, particularly if you're not totally fluent in Spanish and all the procedures that go on, you will just be tearing your hair out. Yeah, I'm a computer guy. I wrote my first computer program in 1975, and I found the Clave sign-up process stressful. So, summary. It's a good idea to get this because it will save you a ton of time. Certificado Digital if you have a computer, Clave if you have a phone, but be prepared to put a little bit of time into learning how it works. The investment will be repaid very quickly. And you will be able to tell your friends, oh, I got to make you've got to make an appointment at the office. I just did it with Clave. So you get, oh, how did you do that? It is quite impressive when you. So on the file that I put online, here are the links to the various things I've talked about. And I hope you're not too tired by this rapid introduction. If you're not all too confused, please ask me anything.
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm autonomo, and I remember going to the Social Security office in Palma for some form of electronic signature thing to give to my gestor.
Yeah.
Is that the digital thingy?
I don't know what they would give you at the Social Security.
I just gave it to my gestor. I have nothing else to do with it.
When you say you gave it to them, what did you kind of physically hand over?
A piece of paper.
Oh.
I know. But I know that, for example, I had something came through the post and it was from Hacienda. I didn't pick it up in time, and I asked my gestor. I've changed gestors since then, and I asked my gestor and they said, we haven't had notification. And then they got notification of what it is. So they can instruct the tax office to take all of my quarterly taxes and everything like that direct from my bank account. So is that a digital certificate, or? It
doesn't sound like it. I mean, a digital certificate it's a small file. It's about 7K bytes, but it's all binary. It's all Chinese inside. Clave is nothing. Clave is literally a record in their computer that this NIE corresponds to this phone number. That's all it is. When was this? Recently or?
Oh, well, gosh, I mean, I went autonomo back in 2017, 2018. Okay. So, they've been accessing my tax.
I suspect it's simply an authorization. I mean, did you keep a copy, or can you get a copy of it? I'll have a look at it, but it doesn't sound like either.
Right. It just allows them to go into my tax records.
Yeah, I think, and I'm quite surprised they even asked. My bank,
it makes things different.
I mean, normally the tax people, it's like, yeah, we own everything, so I was quite surprised they even asked. I don't know. I really don't know. It's
okay. Whereabouts in Palma is the tax office?
The tax office is
or the office that we need to go to
okay, the Clave office is a little bit round and down from Syndicate. Not the Clave office, the digital certificate office. One of the links is the map.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there are multiple places where you can do it, but I really recommend going to the dedicated digital certificate office.
Right.
And in fact, what happened was when we went for my wife's, I must have mistyped the password because the password didn't work. And then we went back and he said, if there's a problem, you don't need to get an appointment to come back. They've got plenty of time. And what I did was I went in with the laptop the second time so that if it didn't work, I could point him at it. They are super in there. They're really, really nice. And they, and if you say, oh, it didn't work, he says, oh, are you using this browser and whatever, they're reasonably, they won't necessarily do it for you, but they're, it's not the sort of, unfriend. There are two kinds of offices, right? The ones that want to see you and the ones that don't want to see you. There's no Securitas guy on the door.
Right. Okay.
It's
the place that I went to was the one on the Ramblers.
That's the social security office. Yeah, that's whoa, you're not getting in there. And then the tax office, I'm not sure whether it's not too far from the center of town.
Okay.
I haven't been.
All right, just if that's got the map on it, I can find it, make that, because for me, definitely the digital certificate is the way.
I think if you're running a business, you're going to be doing this so often, and just to be able to go click and log in and on your computer, and when the first time you use it, you go, is that all? It really is incredibly simple.
Okay. Thank you.
Judy, put your microphone on.
Hi. What happens if you need to change your computer?
Okay, so the certificate is just a little file. Now, when you first get it, the software, you get an email with a link, and I think you can click on that link at any time to download it again. But also the certificate, the software the first time installs it in a magic place in your computer. But if you are on, whatever operating system you're on, will have a manager, which in Windows you go into settings and say certificates, and you bring it up, and you can export it to a file and then import it from a file. So in any case, you're going to want to keep a backup of it somewhere, on a cloud or on a USB stick. But if you keep the email that they send you, I think you can download it again to a new computer directly from there. Oh no, because that downloads the version that requires you to have the original software. Scratch that. When you've downloaded it, use your certificate manager to export a copy, and it's a little file, and then you can import that to any other computer. So my wife and I both have a computer, and her certificate is on my computer. I think my certificate is on her computer as well. You need to do a little bit of Googling about how do I import and export a certificate from Windows 10 or Windows 7. But basically it's a file. So you're going to back that up with your other important files. So you're going to put a copy on your Google Drive, and you're going to put a copy on a USB stick.
Okay.
Also, if you have a Mac, because I change my Mac computers, and you literally just sit them side by side when you get your new computer, and everything transfers over to your new computer.
I'd be interested to see if secure certificates do. So
that might be interesting.
Keep a copy on a file.
Yeah.
But it's not tied. It's only tied to the computer the first time you download it. It has to be downloaded to the same computer where you generated the password because of the way the keys work. But once it's installed, and when you look, you'll see that there are 3 or 4 other certificates that have been installed by the software, but you don't need those. You don't need the software, the FNMT software, to be running to use it. You can just use it. In fact, you can install the software on a smartphone, on an Android phone, the certificate on an Android smartphone. And I did this once for fun. I put it on my phone. I used the phone's web browser to connect to Hacienda, and I logged in from my phone's web browser with the certificate that was on my phone. I don't recommend doing that because if you lose it, but you can do it. So the certificate itself is a standard feature of operating system security that has been around for 25 years. And they very cleverly piggybacked on the back of that. So they haven't really had to do a huge effort of software other than just the bit to generate them. But the day-to-day usage of it is just your web browser talking to your computer's certificate store and offering it up. So it is very, it is an amazingly easy system to use once you've got it, but the threshold to get it is not easy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nick, from
Thanks,
all of
Nick.
us here in Puerto Pienza. We have to sign off now, but that's really, really great stuff. Thank you.
Okay, so I will put, I'll put the link on my Facebook page.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
That's,
Thank you. Thank you.
that's brilliant. Thanks very
Ciao.
much, Nick. Bye. Bye.
Judy.
Bye.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, within a minute, John. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, fantastic presentation, Nick. I'm really, you've made it so plain and simple that even an idiot like me can understand it. I'm in the process of selling one house and buying another, and all the different things for 3 family members where we're needing the driving licenses, the TIEs changed, everything like that would be so simple if I had a digital certificate. Now, I've sat here this afternoon trying to work it out, and I nearly ended up punching a hole in the screen of my computer. So you've made it really easy for me. So I'm going to look forward to this. Now, the other thing I was going to ask you, that this is maybe a numpty question, but the verification of all the documents, does that have to be done at the tax office? Because people tell me about something that you can log into, that you go to the town hall, you're a ayuntamiento to.
Okay. For Clave,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know if it for Clave, the basic place to do it is the tax office,
Right.
because they own Clave.
Right.
That you may be able to go to other offices. I'm sure if you live in Pienza, you don't have to go all the way to the tax office in Palma. For the digital certificate, much the same. There's a list of places that can do it, but you're going to be dealing with people for whom it's the 17th different thing they've done today. So for Palma, I would say for Clave, go to the tax office. But in any case,
I'm in Andalusia.
okay, sorry. Okay. You would, okay. The links I've given you include kind of, the links of where you can get it done. But if you're applying for Clave, I would say try and do it through the app and using the online facility where you sit online and the person, you actually sort of hold your passport up and hold it up to the screen. So that,
right.
Yeah. For the digital certificate, I don't know. If you're in a decent sized town, there may be a dedicated office. Otherwise, it'll be some function of the ayuntamiento. But that you'll have to find out. But there are in the links. One of the links is a map of Spain. I think it's the map of Spain of Certificado offices, because there's a little bit of a turf war. The Certificado people know that they've got the Rolls-Royce solution. And then the Clave people came along and it's like, well, this isn't really quite as good, is it? And so certainly nobody has got the 2 responsible ministers together in a room and said, look, sort it out.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of a turf war, I suspect.
Okay, we're going to have a look into that tomorrow.
Yeah. Sorry, I was working on the basis of Palma. Okay. John.
Okay. Well, sorry, I thought it was thrown open to us all over here, but I mean,
It was. I just hadn't realised you weren't in Palma. Okay.
No, not at all. I'm part of Brexpats in.
I don't recognise the name. John, what can I?
I was only going to say that I actually got my digital signature through my Gestor. Yeah. And I just had to go to the town hall to an office to pick it up. So she actually has it. I have it on my computer because she sent me the file on an email. But it's so convenient that she has it, because when I get those letters 8 pages long from the taxman saying I haven't done this, that and the other, I just give her a ring. She can immediately go online, look at the paperwork and tell me what the problem is. Yeah. So it makes it an awful lot easier, and I trust her anyway. She's not very good at her job, but she's quite cheap, and she's very convenient. But she's actually paid me back tax money when I got the tax man took 4,000 out of my account. which technically he shouldn't have done, she paid it back the very next day to my account from her account. So, and it hasn't come back from Hacienda yet, and that was about 9 months ago. So,
wow. The tax
she's pretty good.
My tax person, they have a way of doing the declaration on your behalf as the gestor through a gestor sort of portal that doesn't require access to your account. But when anything comes back based on that, then it's sitting in your account and they won't necessarily be able to see that. And that's when, as I say, my gestor prefers to use Clave because she knows that I can't say, 3 days later or 6 months later, hold on, all this money got, taken, or it must have been a rogue employee at my gestoria. Right. So it that I don't worry too much about these things, but she's thought about this. It's important to her. And so I feel pretty good about that. So there is that aspect of the temporary versus the permanent.
I just apologize for, I was talking at one time, I'd actually turned the video off and I hadn't realized I hadn't muted the mic. And I was talking to my wife. I said, can you hear it? And you said, yes, I can hear you, John.
Yeah, I thought you were talking to us.
So I apologize.
No. The Certificado lasts, I think it's 4 years. And after that, you can renew it once online. And then after 8 years, you have to go back to the office, which isn't too much of a hassle. Clave, I'm not certain how long it lasts for. I presume there's some, but it probably is until the expiry date of your document.
I don't know. Oh, you've gone off again. I've got Clave, but I've never been able to use it for some odd reason. But the certificate, when I want it, I can go and look at my tax returns for the last 4 or 5 years without any trouble at all.
There are so many stories with Clave of how it just doesn't work and nobody knows why. Either they couldn't apply for it or they're signed up for it, but the messages don't arrive. And, you go and you log in and it's got the right number. It is disappointing because the principle of it is quite incredibly good and really is the idea that absolutely everybody can use secure digital ID without having to own anything other than a SIM card is quite amazing. The next thing Spain is coming with is the eDNI. And what that will be is a DNI with a chip on it, and perhaps we'll all get TAs with chips on it. And you plug it into your computer via a little reader, and that does all the login for you. So that is like the digital certificate, and your computer just goes out to the card reader and reads the chip. That's so you won't even need to apply for it, because when you get your eDNI, it will all be ready there on there, and you'll just have to buy the card reader for €10. So I think collectively, we're not used to Spain being a world leader in something when it comes to administration. It's kind of reassuring that Clave works in that kind of welcome to Spain way. But we sort of know that underlying this is a really quite a benevolent, albeit incompetent regime. And this kind of thing is an example of the first couple of times you use the digital certificate, you go, wow, they've really thought about how to make this easier for everyone. The problem is to get it down. I mean, obviously, as extranjeros and people with limited Spanish, sometimes it's harder for us to get it. The problem is to get it out to everybody. And they really need to make more of an effort, I think, to, they should have a thing where you can walk in with your phone and they will sign you up in 10 minutes. It should, as opposed to having to make an appointment at the tax office. You ought to be able to do this at the health center. It ought to be a
opportunity there.
But at least the system is there. As I say, in Germany, I talked to a German friend. I said, have you got your EU COVID certificate yet? He said, yeah, I had to go to the pharmacy to pick it up on paper. I said, well, isn't there some system you can log on to? And he said, well, how would they know who I was? And Germany, particularly actually with technology, has some very, very big lag. I don't know in the US, in the UK, I think it works with your NHS number. But I don't know
the NHS number, but I mean the US, it's quite funny because I've got loads of my students that have had their vaccinations in the US, and it's just this little piece of paper that they got from like Walgreens.
Yeah, and Europe accepts it, but I mean, you know, pretty easy to fake, right?
Oh God, yeah.
And I presume they're not getting into any restaurants in Italy anytime soon.
I don't know.
Well, Italy, France, you need it even to eat on the terrace. Italy, it's only for indoors, but you have to have the EU certificate, which is called the Green Pass. It's not called Il Passo Verde. It's called Il Green Pass. Everyone's got their Green Pass.
Yeah, France is quite strict on that as well.
And though it's become a national thing, whereas here we just got vaccinated, we downloaded our certificate, and we only use it really. What is it? Travel and 1 or 2 nightclubs that you need it for here.
Yeah, well, I don't bother with nightclubs, but definitely for travel.
Yeah, but it's been it's been a big success. Now, when here in Palma anyway, or in Mallorca, when the EU certificate came out, you had to have Clave to get it online. And I don't know if people kind of complained about that, but they then changed it to a system that's kind of mini Clave, because you had to give in your health card number and your NIE, and it would then send it to your registered phone number that the health system knew about. So I think they made that easier because not enough people have got Clave.
Yeah, it was super easy.
On mine, I was going to say, for my certificate, I actually went on, it's called Responde Salud, Salud Responde, and I'm logged onto that, so they know who I am, and I got my certificate of COVID through that. But again, very straightforward. If
for some reason your health system doesn't have your phone number, or if you don't know your health card number, because if you've got private insurance, they put you in with a fictitious card number, but they don't always tell you what that is. There is a second way to get your certificate online. So either through your local health system website, but the National Health Ministry, mscbs.gov.es, has a little link that you can click on. And if you have certificate or Clave, you can use that system, which is the most astonishingly Heath Robinson / Rube Goldberg, choose as you like. But it works, and it has to go off to 19 different autonomous health authorities, and it generates the certificate on the fly. Because what happened was, my wife's certificate, they'd misspelled her name, and when Baleares generates the certificate 3 hours after your second dose, they just stuck the wrong spelling of the name in there, and it's just a PDF sitting in their computer. And it wasn't a very big spelling mistake, but, you know, getting on a plane. But when I went through the health ministry, it generates it on the fly from the data that's in your NIE card, which was correct. And so she got it, we were able to get it correctly spelled that way. So if you know people who are having trouble getting it through the health system, particularly with the private insurance, etc., you can phone them up and ask what your fictitious health card number is. But then, if they've got Clave or a digital certificate, they can go through the National Health Ministry site and get a fresh one.
Interesting.